Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm really excited to speak with you today. Just a brief look of the agenda for this talk. First, I'll just introduce myself a little bit more and talk about what is SoundFlow, if there's anybody in the audience who are not fully aware. And then after that, discuss how, with the release of SoundFlow 6 about 2 weeks ago, and Pro Tools 2025.10, how they're now fully integrated. Then we're going to go over SFX for plugins and how the new framework that this integration with Pro Tools is built on, how that enables plugins to take advantage of all these new automation and AI features. And then we're going to look at, quite briefly towards the end, so I apologize in advance if there are developers in the room. The code will come a little bit later. But we'll look at how easy it is to integrate all of these new features into plugins, specifically JUCE. And then finally, how you can get access to all of this. Super briefly about me, I've been coding and making music since I was a kid. I've got a degree from the National Film School of Denmark in sound design, where I worked in the Danish film industry for about 10 years. And then I founded SoundFlow. And originally, I actually built it for myself as a sound editor because I was really tired of having to click the preview button all the time with the mouse. And I wanted a way to have shortcuts, be able to do that. This was before we had custom keyboard shortcuts in Pro Tools. So SoundFlow started its journey all the way back in 2011. So it's got 14 years, right now. So what is SoundFlow? It's basically a workflow automation platform for creatives. It's got a drag and drop macro engine. You can see some examples here where users can very easily orchestrate workflows, anything from something simple to really advanced scripts using JavaScripts. And then we have a trigger system for hardware integrations, so users can use various different tools to execute their macros. Typically, our users are music producers from around the world and post-production professionals. So they'll typically use Stream Decks, either the 5x3s here or with knobs. In SoundFlow, you can also design your own decks or custom surfaces for use with phones or tablets. iOS and Android is supported. And we also include a variety of different other triggers. You can use your MIDI keyboards. You can send OSC messages. You can use Yukon control surfaces like the S6 or even the Avid Control app. So basically, you can think of SoundFlow as the glue between all of your various hardware and the software that you want to control, with a big historical emphasis on Pro Tools. We also have basically an IDE-like experience. You can see a little video from the SoundFlow editor here. So you can see there's both JavaScripts, there's a hierarchy of packages and commands that you can build. You can drag and drop macros. You can even build custom apps like this video converter. So it's a really, really full workflow automation solution for, you can see this is on Mac, but we are now starting to have Windows support as well. So brief history, we launched version 1 back in 2017. Then we added Stream Deck and Surface support, and the community really started growing about 2019, 2020, and during the pandemic. And so we are really proud of our community. We've got, I think, over 100,000 posts on our forum from, so we're really encouraging people. You could see it before with all the packages. We're really encouraging people to collaborate on workflows. So it's not about a solution that just makes one person happier with their computer. It's about making everybody work smarter. 3 years ago, we had our first strategic partnership with Avid, and this year we finally launched fully co-installed with Pro Tools, fully integrated, introducing new AI features, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. SoundFlow 6 is now fully in Pro Tools, something that our users have been asking for a very long time. And you might think, why am I talking about this? This is about plugins. Well, I want to be sure that you all know that the platform you're getting access to is not just this tiny little company from Denmark. It's fully built into Pro Tools now. It's co-installed on both macOS and Windows. It's powered by this new SFX framework that we'll talk about later. It has more or less single sign-on, like single-click sign-on via Avid accounts. And then it lives as a panel in the right side of the edit window. And we're also providing the tutorial system in Pro Tools. So we'll take a look at that now. So here you can see the SoundFlow panel. It also includes more than 1,700 free macros. So the point of all this is that we want to bring this type of automation, both the old school like macro-based automation and the new AI-based automation, to all Pro Tools users. So that's the point of this whole integration. So we're providing the interactive tutorial system. We'll take a look in a moment at what that looks like. So it's basically has full awareness of every UI element on screen in Pro Tools powered by SFX. So these tutorials are available for free to all Pro Tools users, and you can do all sorts of advanced stuff like highlighting elements. You can embed videos into these tutorials. They can follow what the user is doing, or it can instruct the user to do stuff. It's cloud connected and can be integrated with learning management systems. And you can do lots of custom integrations. So we'll take a look at that. So here's an example of the welcome tutorial in 3 times the speed. Where you can see here we're reacting to the user doing things. We can highlight the timeline, tracks, and even clips. And all of this is available thanks to SFX as the framework that allows the SoundFlow process and Pro Tools to very effectively communicate with each other. We also introduce a new form of automation, which we call flows, which is sort of a superset of the tutorials you just saw. But here's an example of one flow, which is an AI assistant way to select the best mic in a set of clips in Pro Tools. And then another flow here to upload that selection to the cloud and logging into various online cloud accounts and upload the mix directly. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of the technology that is married with SFX in this release. By far, I think the most groundbreaking thing that we're doing here is the new session assistant. So it's also a type of flow. It also lives in the SoundFlow side panel. And it's the first of its kind chatbot assistant that allows you to communicate with your Pro Tools session. We got free credits available for all Pro Tools users, so they can go in and test it out. And again, it's built on SFX technology. So here's a little example where I'm talking to it, asking it to create some drum tracks. I did speed this up. It's not quite as fast, but yeah. And you can see it has context here. So I first asked it to do some stuff, and then I asked it to prefix all the drums tracks with DR space. So it's a really powerful tool that currently it has a limited set of features, but we can add more functionality to it as we see fit. And eventually, this will be more deeply integrated with the rest of the macro system from SoundFlow. So how does all this work? This is all based on the SFX framework that I talked about. So SFX is a cross-platform C++ framework developed by us. It works on macOS and Windows. It's designed for real-time communication with plugins. So imagine you're streaming hundreds of parameter changes per second. It has full support for that with less than 10 microsecond round trips in its communication. So basically, it allows the SoundFlow process to talk with any other process on your system, macOS or Windows. If it's Pro Tools, then we talk with a couple different modules in there. If you load plugins into Pro Tools and those are connected via SFX, they'll all share a single message thread. So it's designed for minimal memory and CPU footprint, but extremely fast inter-process communication. And it comes with built-in support for JUCE plugins and Qt-based apps. So a quick glance of how that architecture looks like. So basically over here, you've got the SoundFlow process in this white rectangle. So the SoundFlow scripting engine is what handles all the user's macros and scripts. So let's say a user has, or in this case, all of our tutorials. So if a tutorial wants to know where is this window that I want to highlight, it used to communicate via accessibility. So this diagram here has a little bit of history for those that know that we used to rely on accessibility. So those are the purple boxes here. So we used to implement NX accessibility, and this was very Mac dependent. What SFX does is it goes in and completely replaces that route of communication. So you can see here is an example of the Pro Tools process, but it could be any DAW that hosts plugins, for example, developed by you. It then loads in our dynamic library at runtime only if SoundFlow is installed. So there's no penalty for the plugin if SoundFlow is not installed on the computer. Of course, it will be on all Pro Tools machines. And then it communicates via a very small static library that just makes it really easy to build the specific implementations. And so you can see they all communicate through this single library, a single message thread to handle all that IPC. So at this point, I would normally ask if there's any questions, but I think the format here is that we wait until the end. Yeah. So let's take a look at what all this means for plugins. So we briefly looked at the session assistant, the interactive tutorials, the macros. What we've been waiting for is to get this framework far enough and our distribution far enough so that for plugin developers, it should be a really easy choice to say, yes, we would like to implement that. So you'll see that throughout the design of the entire system here. So in this case, I've made an example integration of SFX using the open source Odin 2 plugin, which is based on JUCE. And so basically the deal is once you implement SFX in your plugin, you get access to a plugin assistant, AI assistant living inside of Pro Tools. All of the interactive tutorials that you saw, users can create their own macros and scripts controlling your plugin. You can do UI automation, which we know some of our users already use for pace testing, like UI exercising of the UI. And then, of course, users can use stream decks with knobs to real-time control your parameters with bidirectional feedback. All of that functionality through just implementing SFX once. So let's take a look at what it looks like. Here we've got Odin 2 running inside of Pro Tools as an AX plugin. And I'm using this new plugin assistant sort of prototype where I'm asking it to adjust parameters. I'm asking it to load specific presets. And because the agent can query the plugin, it can sort of, I don't have to give it specific names of presets I would like to adjust or specific parameters. It can go in and ask the plugin, what is your list of parameters? What is your list of presets? And of course, you could be providing additional system prompts to say, if the user prefers this kind of adjustment, you really should go in and tweak these parameters instead of these parameters. So that's just a prototype, very, very basic functionality. But I believe this, when combined with the session assistant, imagine you could be, creating 100 tracks, load up all your favorite contact instruments, and route them to via an Ensemble Pro, or route them through some matrix, and you could orchestrate all of that via the chatbot here without having any learning curve as a user. And here, another example of the interactive tutorials where you'll just see here I can move the window around and SoundFlow will update where all the elements are on screen. We can even highlight specific elements. And like this, walk through how does this plugin work. Of course, you can also imagine using such tutorials in combination with a tutorial that walks you through how Pro Tools works. So if you want to do, side, what is that called? Side compression, something. And you want to route different tracks, and you want to automate parts of both the Pro Tools UI and the plugin, or anything advanced that you want to explain. Tutorials are really good for that. And here is an example of the SoundFlow macro system being integrated with a plugin where I can do a quick preset search. So I can search for any keyword and comes up. And another example here where I've built a small little preset that basically creates a new track in Pro Tools, opens the editor, and then selects the preset through Odin's custom preset system. Because, of course, Pro Tools has a track preset system, but most plugins come with their own preset systems. So that's something we knew we had to be able to support with SFX. All right. How far are we? 15 minutes. All right. So this last section is about how you integrate all of this into your plugin. We wanted to make very, very sure that this was as close to basically one developer day to integrate. SFX is a proprietary product, but we have examples available for JUCE and Qt that are open source, and basically you add a single definition here of the bundle ID to your CMake lists, and you include the CMake config file and add it to your target, and that's all you have to do in the CMake list. You can also include the module in the producer if you prefer using that. And then there's just a couple more things needed. In your primary audio processor, you call the initialization, and then you basically add the plugin instance and you remove it on destruction. So as you can see, it's designed to minimally touch your code and then provide all of these mappings of parameters and out of the box. Now, because presets are typically not, they can be handled in a variety of different ways in plugins, we provide some out-of-the-box sort of easy wrappers to configure presets. So here is just an example of the way Odin works with presets. It has some built-in factory presets that are compiled as binary data into the binary. So we have to basically translate that structure to SFX. So we just loop through them here and add them. And then it also has user presets that can be stored as files in a directory structure. And so we also provide a directory provider for presets that basically auto maps that entire hierarchy. And so this here that you see is the totality of that mapping of Odin, and you then get all of the features I mentioned with just these. I think the total git commit distance is something like 150 lines of code for that entire integration. But SFX is really extensible, so it's possible to add custom attributes, actions, and events. To quickly explain what I mean by that, SFX basically can map any C++ object in your code. We then just provide out-of-the-box mapping for JUCE plugin instances and their parameters and their values. But you could think of anything that you want to expose to automation. You can fully customize that. So here's just a few examples of how you respond to an attribute get event. So you get a smart pointer with a context, so you can also kick off processing to another thread if you want to handle the return of the value on a different thread. It could be, take a while to receive data, for example. You can implement custom actions if you want to give users the ability to do custom things in your plugin. That is more like a specific action. You can implement that. And the way in which you register all of these handlers, it's an incredibly easy API for registering the metadata for each of the objects that you want to expose to SoundFlow. And you can see here it says protocol metadata, audio plugin parameter protocol, so that's because we also define pre-mapped protocols that allow SoundFlow to understand sort of all plugins as a whole, and we can do a unified scripting engine on the user side. But of course, you could extend this any way you want and create something specific to your plugin architecture. Here's an example of the Qt integration that we have. So here we're defining a custom node. So a node in SFX lingo is basically a mapping of a class. And here we're implementing the AX element protocol, which is another way of telling SoundFlow that this is mapping a UI element in sort of an accessibility kind of way. So it's a really, really simple system that basically with about 20, 30 lines of code can get your JUCE plugin automatically mapped. And then you can very easily add things like presets. And then there's further possibilities of making entirely custom integrations. If you have a custom UI framework, that's also fully supported. The way we integrated with Pro Tools, that's a custom UI framework. So SFX can, again, map any C++ object you might have. So we released version 1 of SFX with Pro Tools, 2025.10 and SoundFlow 6 2 weeks ago. And then version 1.1, which is fully backwards compatible, we aim to release early next year. So we are looking for feedback from plugin developers who are interested in implementing SFX, and we'll work closely with those of you who are interested in that so that we can make sure that these protocols are designed correctly. So yeah, everything you've seen here is, everything in Pro Tools is released, and the plugin specific integrations, we're still tinkering with those. And with that, thank you for your attention, and look forward to any questions you have.